Hi, I'm Dr. Mike, and this is NFGeeks. Today is Sunday, and on the NFGeeks Facebook forum, Sunday is Ask Dr. Mike Day, where people ask questions and put them on the forum, and whoever gets the most likes, whatever question gets the most likes, is the winner. And this is a response to a question, and the winner today of that is Emmy. And Emmy has been on NFGeeks. You can check out her videos. And her question got the most votes, so that's the question that's going to be answered in this video. And so here's what Emmy writes. This is the question. Her question is about the inferior functions. So she asks, how do they affect us, and how should we improve them in order to become balanced? That's her main question. Okay. The rest is pretty amusing, so I'm going to read that. She says, as an ENFP, my SI is shit. My memory is shit. I lose things easily. I can go hours without eating or drinking. I won't recognize that I'm getting sick, and I often let my tea, coffee get cold without drinking it. Okay, so that's her whole question. And so what she's asking is what to do about your inferior functions, and what can you do about that, and sort of listing some interesting behaviors, because I can identify with that because I'm an ENFP too. So when I give the examples, I'll give it from an ENFP point of view, because an ENFP is asking this question, but we'll see if we broaden that out into other things. One of the things that caught my eye about what she said was about getting sick, because obviously that's related to introverted sensing and other things, but I want to talk about the experience as an ENFP. As ENFPs, because of that, we don't know when we're getting sick, and so one of the things that happens is that we become hypochondriacs, because we don't know how to read our body, right? Or what does it mean? And so anything can be sick, and anything can mean anything, and you never know. You become hyper vigilant about it. For example, I'm a total hypochondriac. Everything, I think I'm dying. Whatever it is, I think I'm dying about once a day. One of the things that makes that hard, and this is what I mean by the SI, is that I had shingles a couple of years ago. Shingles is horribly painful. It's the chicken pox, revenge of the chicken pox. That's what that is. And it damages your nerves, and you get neuralgia. So neuralgia is you get nerve pain, and it never goes away. It's really bad. It lasts for years and years and years. Okay, it comes on and it goes on and off. It's almost like having, when you bite into something cold and you hit a cavity and you get that pain in your mouth. Imagine that, but in another part of your body, here. So I get this nerve pain every now and then. That's right here, left side of my chest. You can see where this is going. I get this nerve pain, and when it hits, I'm always having a panic attack that I'm having a heart attack. Now, I'm not having a heart attack because it's the exact same pain. It's not like this waves of pain or pressure. It's this very pinpointed pain. It's right. I can point to it. It's right here. It's the exact same spot every time it hits. But even though I know that, for the first couple of seconds to a minute about it, I sort of have a freak out about it. And that's because we can't tell whether we're sick or not, or whatever. Anything could mean anything. That's what happens with us. So that struck me from the question. Okay, now let's get to the answer to it. I actually talked about this in a video, one of the first videos I did in the new studio, and there's more videos from the new studio to come. Believe me, I have like 8 that need to go on NFGeeks, so you'll see more of that. But the very first one I made in the studio was on this subject, so I'm going to sort of go back to what I said in that video and then expand on it for Emmy's question. So first of all, and again, I realize that I am a singular voice on this issue, but I'm going to start with the position that you cannot actually improve your inferior functions, in the sense that you can stretch them out, that you can have an improved introverted sensing, okay, that these things can be worked on and changed, okay. I think that's false, and I think that's a false assumption, okay, and that really your functions are what they are, and that the right thing to do, and this is what I said in the other video, is to sort of understand the limitations of your type and learn to cope with them, learn to internalize them and take them in and incorporate them into yourself, but you're not going to change them per se. Okay, they're not. And people don't change like that. People don't. I mean, they really don't. You are what you are, and that's the thing about type, and that makes type is that it's consistent over time. Okay, personality type is consistent. Your personality type is not really going to change. Okay, which means the dimensions of it aren't going to change to any degree that would be helpful if it's changing at all, and I don't even think that's happening. Again, I think people think that they change, or that it's not even that they think, they want them to change, because if I can change these deficits, then I don't have to acknowledge that I have deficit limitations, you know. But that's more out of fear of your own self, fear of your own limitations as a person, fear of mistaking type with identity, with character, you know, these things being mixed up. And because all three of those things are not the same thing. But thinking that one is the other, that I don't like who I am, so if I change my, you know, introverted thinking or something, I'll be better than what I am. You know, it's actually coming from a non-acceptance of yourself, if you think about it. You know, if you're always trying to change whatever function you're trying to change, then that's not accepting, you know, that part of yourself that is whatever type it is, ENTP, ISTJ, whatever. You know, you're not accepting it. So we got to start from that point, that the answer to this is not in somehow making introverted sensing for ENFPs anyway stronger. Or if you want to think of it this way, let's do it for everybody. Making your whatever your inferior function is, okay, it is what it is. It is what it is, and it's not changing, and that's that. Okay, that's not how this works. It's a limitation. You have to learn to live with that limitation, and you know, there's no two bones about that. However, one of the mistakes, though, when we get caught up into this, has to do with the function fetish, and that I call the function fetish, where we are too over focused on specific individual functions. That too much reductionism is going on. Okay, and to really understand how all this works, you have to understand any kind of function in the context of the larger type, of the larger temperament, or whatever. You have to take a holistic approach to how all these things work. And if you sort of expand it out, then there is an answer to Emmy's question that is not necessarily about strengthening the inferior function, okay? But to do that, you have to understand how all the functions are fitting together. And I talked about this a little bit in the other video too. But ultimately, functions work with one another, okay? And through the entire mechanism, things happen. And so the way to improve anything, or to, I wouldn't say improve, but try to make something more palatable to yourself and able to function better, requires some kind of metacognition, meaning it's an awareness of your process, and that awareness of the process is how everything is fitting together and working together. So if you have this much larger view of how your whole type is working together as one thing, or how types in general work together as one thing, then and sort of, you know, see that as object, you know, you're sort of having a process about your process, then you can, you know, use it to your advantage. Okay, so let's talk about that then, specific to memory. Okay, now what you have to do is you have to, one of the mistakes, let me put it this way, one of the mistakes we make is that sensing, or introverted sensing, is about memory, all kinds of memory. It isn't, okay? And I know many of you know this, but you know, it's only for specific tactile memory. But other things are being used in memory, and you should think about it in terms of the functions introversion or extroversion. This is where the answer lies, okay? And yeah, and not necessarily whether it's the perceiving, judging, forget that for a minute. Just think introversion, introverted function, extroverted function. Now, it's a very easy way to think about how these things work. It's very simple. Your extroverted function is the function you talk through. Okay, that's coming out of you. That's the thing you're talking through. Your introverted function is the one that you listen with. Okay, it's the one that's what's coming in. All right, and by listening, it has to be coming in to some degree memory. Okay, so what that means is that any introverted function is actually your memory. Okay, that's how memory is working, because that's how things are going in. That's how you're interpreting things as it comes in, through the introverted function. Okay, and if we look at it in terms of, you know, dominant and all that, you know, there's two that go together. Okay, you know. So for example, in ENFP, our two introverted functions are feeling. We're introverted feelings, and we're introverted sensors. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that it's not that our memory stinks. It's not so much that ENFP memory stinks. It's that ENFP memory is emotional. Okay, we remember things emotionally, not tactically. And I mean tactile, not strategy. Um, but we remember things emotionally. It's an emotional memory. Things go in, and it becomes an emotional imprint. Okay, so if you think about it, so this is for any ENFP or INFP really, you have great memory when it comes to emotional feeling. Okay, when you have a memory that has some kind of emotional content, yeah, everything comes back. Okay, there's no memory lapse in that. It's the tactile. All right. Now, the way they work then is that you have two different functions working on memory, two introverted functions, one stronger than the other. So what's happening, or what you can use, is that the one that's stronger is your stronger version of memory. And so the thing to do is not so much stretching out your introverted sensing. You're sort of coming into the awareness, again, some kind of metacognition. You're coming into an awareness of how the two things fit together. And if you realize, as an ENFP, that your memory is actually pretty good, because when it's based in feeling, introverted feeling, then that's what you should use. Okay, you use the stronger function to sort of compensate for the weaker function, because you can't stretch them out. I know everyone thinks that you can. You can't. This is just an idea everybody talks about to make everyone feel better, that they're not boxed in by their type or whatever. You're boxed in. Let me assure you, okay, you're boxed in. But still, there's plenty of room in there. So instead of doing that, think about, have some metacognition about how your other introverted function, feeling, introverted feeling, is taking up memory, and then knowing that, you can use that to your advantage. Okay, so if you're an ENFP, what should you do? What you should do, is my advice, is give everything an emotional context. Okay, and NFs do that anyway, just naturally, but give everything sort of make an emotional relationship with things, and then make that a connection to you, and you remember. And so what am I talking about? I mean, literally, if you talk about losing your keys, have an emotional connection to your keys. Put them in an emotional place that's meaningful for you, and you'll always remember that they're there. Okay? So for example, my keys hang, okay, over there, that way, okay? And they're hanging on this really crappy little brass house that you nail up to the wall. It's like it's flat and it looks like a house with a tree. It's stupid. And you nail it to the wall, and then I hang my keys on that. All the hooks are broken except one, and that's the one my keys are on. But that thing has a lot of emotional memory to it, because this was my mother's and it hung in her house, and that thing has been in my family for decades. Okay, and I grew up looking at that thing, and now here it is right there in the house. It's in rough shape, but it's home. It reminds me of home. The old home I grew up in, and all that. So I never lose my keys, because I put my keys in this little house in a tree, and it looks like home, and it's on the home in my home from when it was in my home. There's all this emotional stuff about home going on with that. And so I never lose my keys. But it's because I've used the emotional introverted feeling to pick up the slack for the introverted sensing, okay? Because that's what it does. And so, whatever your strength is, you should go with that strength. So, for the rest of you, whatever your introverted function is, okay, the strong one, the dominant or the auxiliary, whichever one is your introverted function, that's your memory, okay? So that's what's going to be the strongest thing in terms of memory. And it's very strong if you're introverted. If you're introverted yourself, that's going to be a very, very strong mechanism for memory. But for any of you, regardless of your actual extroversion, introversion, your introverted function is your memory function. So if you're having memory issues, you want to improve your memory, or you want to, change the memory in your life, use that strength. Step back from yourself and use that strength. So again, if you're an ENFP, make it emotional, okay? Make an emotional connection. Or an INFP. INFPs have very good emotional memory. That's why they have a hard time forgiving. Yeah, yes you do. But that's why, because their emotional memory is very strong, okay? Very, very, very strong. All right, so that's, we can do that, with our feelings. If you're an intuitive, if your intuition is the introverted one, well, then that means you memorize things abstractly, okay? as abstract concepts. Okay, so you should use that conceptual knowing, memory and knowing. And any of the functions, work this way. So whatever your introverted function is, that's your memory function, and whatever is the strongest of them, auxiliary or dominant, that's what you should use. So you need to step back from yourself and use that one. So instead of complaining about how your introverted sensing stinks and I want to change it and I don't, not that you were complaining, I'm talking about everybody, but instead of complaining about that and trying to fix something that can't be fixed or even doesn't even need to be fixed, to be honest, take the thing that that's strong and use that and understand how that's working. Okay, so for ENFP, for Hemi, instead of thinking about how to strengthen your introverted sensing, think about how your introverted feeling is involved in your memory, and then use that. Okay, and it's very easy as an NF to find, or at least as an ENFP and INFP, to find emotional connection to anything. Okay, I have 1,000 knickknacks all over my house, not just that key thing. I mean, I got things all over the place from the years, you know what I mean, that I have emotional connection to. So, and I can tell you where any one of those are, in terms of, the past and love and, whatever, NF stuff. So, use that to your advantage. And here's the thing, it's naturally compensating for that anyway. Okay, and it doesn't mean you don't have introverted sensing. Of course, we all do, to whatever degree. But if it's weak, if your introverted sensing is inferior, then you want to go with the superior one, whatever one that is. It doesn't matter. Whatever the introverted inferior function is, that's the weakest part of your memory. So whatever the strongest introverted function is, that's the strongest part of your memory. Go with that. Okay. So that's it. What's the short version? So you can skip right to this point. Skip over the 16 minutes. Short version is forget stretching out the inferior function. It doesn't work. It's never going to work. Your introverted function, the dominant or auxiliary, that's your memory. That's how your memory works at its strongest. Be aware of that and use it to your advantage. Okay? So that's it. All right. Thanks.